Evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 28th of July, 2024. I cannot believe it. We are nearly into August. That also means we're about a month away from being into autumn. What has happened to summer? Now, it has been pretty bright and sunny today, yesterday, but it feels so late. It does feel so late. Now, that brings us up, of course, onto the subject for this week, because we've had a mild winter, a very wet spring, and a very cool and wet summer as well. That means, and it's been reported quite a lot in the news, there has been a lot of slugs and snails. And my allotment has certainly been hit by them as well. So, what we're going to do today is discuss how we've been battling against slugs and snails this year. Before we get into that, let's see if anybody is actually out there. Yes, we have got Ballycillian Allotment Man saying hello, everyone. Good evening to you. We have got Turbo Stream. Good evening, Veg Podcasters. 25 degrees C and sunny side up today. Do you find that with the sun being out, it's lifted your spirits? It's made you happier? Adrian says, hi, Richard and all. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson says, evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope we are all enjoying the sunshine at last. Indeed, we are. It's the only trouble with this sunshine is we haven't had time to acclimatise to it. It's just hit us. And I can guarantee you there will be people saying it's too hot. They may not be saying it, actually. They're probably thinking it. Scott says, good evening all. Good evening to you. Graham Arnold says, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Nigel from Muddy Boots Allotment Channel says, evening all from a sunny Midlands. Anna Jones says, good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Ginny Kate says, hi, everyone. Sunny in Hampshire. Indeed, sunny in Sussex as well. Rob's Allotment Gardening, and a very good and sunny evening to one and all. Good evening to you. Nathan says, evening all. Good evening to you. And Jenny says, hello, everyone. I hope you are well. I've been busy planting out the cottage garden and raised beds at long last. Plants going in very late, but I should get a harvest. Fantastic. And Kate's also joined and says, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. So let's go check on Instagram. Green Fingers has joined over on Instagram. Welcome along, my friend. Hope you are well. So, finally, my dad has joined. Good evening, all. Hello, Dad. How are you? How is Teddy as well? Hope he's doing okay. Now, slugs and snails. As I said in the intro, there has been a lot of trouble with slugs and snails this year. It's the worst year that I have ever known it, and I can honestly say that. Most years I have very, very little trouble with slugs and snails, and my honest answer as to why this happens is because I use nature. I invite birds in to come and take care of the slugs and snails for me. And most years I get away with it. Yeah, we might lose the odd one or two, but nothing like we've had this year. This year has been really, really hard. I have planted out entire beds of carrots. The seeds have came up, they've germinated, they're growing well, and then literally a load of rain comes along, the slugs now came along and eaten a lot. And it's the same with a lot of plants, squashes, beans. I am having a really, really hard year, but we will persevere. And it's all down to these annoying little molluscs. Now, what I'm going to say right at the beginning, as you know, I don't like killing anything unnecessarily. I believe in letting nature take care of itself. I don't even like the word pests, but that's me. That is what I would say, my personal opinion. What you guys do, completely up to you. We just have to all remember that we're all going to have different approaches and different methods. We want to find out from you what you are doing. So I think the first question I'm going to ask, how many of you have noticed an increase in slugs and snails this year and have lost plants because of it? While you get to answering that first question, let's have a look. Graham says, lovely weather for a cold one, Rob. Indeed. I don't drink, but I'm sure it is. Tabo Stream says, my mood definitely lifts when the sun is out. Reinforces that I get sad when it's grey and overcast. Doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of people suffer with it. Digwell has gone foreign again. Kot Gvold Ale Salmon. Good evening, everyone in Icelandic. He's really taken us to some exotic places lately. Nigel says hi to Rob. Funny you should say that. I just got a few Stellas out of the fridge. Rebecca has joined. Good evening. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Anybody watching in the Facebook group as well, I should say, I may not see your comments. Facebook changed what they were, the way we can live stream into groups recently. So I cannot see your comments, but feel free to join on the group, YouTube or Instagram. Turbo Stream says, what are you doing shopping in Iceland, Tigwell? Jenny says, I have had slugs and snails, but I have done nothing to stop them. I have lost a little and a few munch marks, but nothing much. Birds, amphibian, hexoids, etc., all fill in their boots with them. That's my approach, and it's never let me down until this year. But we'll get into that as well. What else have we got? Idaho Garn Girls there saying hello to everyone. Good evening to you. Stuart says, yes, loads more slugs and snails this year. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad it's not just me. Rebecca says, it's been crazy. I've lost so many seedlings and expensive dahlias. I've been breaking this year. It's been breaking this year. Oh, hang on. It's been loss. It's been loss breaking this year. It's been heartbreaking, I think, is what she's trying to say. Sorry, my reading there isn't great. Yeah, it has been. It has been a really, really hard year, and I know we're not the only ones. Over on Instagram, just quickly checking, Amanda Joy has joined, as has Sadler95. Is that a new username for Amanda? What have we got as well? Ballycillion says, worst year ever. Never seen so many, and they seem to be bigger monsters. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed that as well. They're bigger, and they just don't seem to give up. There are definitely more slugs and snails this year, but I don't believe that I have lost much more than usual due to this. Lucky you. Digwell says, no real increases. I don't have many hiding places for them. Very little damage this year. So Digwell has been sending them all on over to our allotments, our plots. He's the one that seems to be getting away with it. However, I'm joking, of course, Digwell. Apologies. But however, I think the point that you've made about hiding places is something I want to delve into. Jenny says, I've noticed a big increase in leopard slugs, which is amazing. I've noticed that as well. I may have moved some on purpose when we moved house. Leopard slugs actually cannibalize. They eat other slugs, so they're quite good to have them in the garden if you see them. They're the ones that I try and look after. Over on Instagram, just quickly, Amanda says, evening all, lovely to see you. I've missed the last few weeks, had a lovely 4-day gardening weekend planned, and then got struck down with COVID. Itching to be better and back on the plot. Fantastic. Lovely to see you, Amanda. Hope you are getting over COVID. It's doing the rounds again, COVID. We know people who are suffering with COVID. Ian says, evening, everyone. I had a lot of slugs on my lawns the other day, big as wine gums. Yummy. Bigger than wine gums, I would have said, the ones I'm seeing. Scott says they've been bad this year. I did come across snail caviar the other day, £75 for 70 grand. Some crazy people out there must eat snail egg from the allotment. Let's just quickly. Anyway, right. Let's get on. So what I'm basically seeing is that there are a lot of people who are having trouble with slugs and snails. Definite increase, as Nathan says, definite increase in slug snail population this year. Definitely something I've noticed. So how do we deal with them? What is your way that you have dealt with them, and what has been your result this year? So for me personally, my normal way that I would deal with them, as I said, is nature. I'd get the birds to come in, the thrushes, the seagulls, and by leaving food out for them. Trouble is, when we've had bird flu, I haven't been able to leave as much bird food out for the birds because we've got to keep them away from the chickens. So there's been problems going on there. But we haven't had bird flu this year. So inviting the birds in has been my first port of call. And let's not forget frogs and toads and slow worms and hedgehogs, which we have seen hedgehogs. We haven't seen many frogs or toads this year, but that might be another way of looking at it. But definitely I find getting the nature to come in. And then, of course, we got our chickens as well. So that is my first protocol. Get the nature in to do the job for me. Now, that's fine outside. In a greenhouse or in the veggie pod, slightly different because they're covered. Hard for the nature to get into those. But in there, I've been using woolen pellets, and I've also been using my grazer's spray that basically makes the plants inedible to many of the slugs and snails. And that has worked as well, but to a certain point. That's been my way around it. However, let's see what everyone else is saying. Nigel has joined. Hello. Only the leaks have survived the SNS onslaught here. Oh, very lucky. Very lucky. Rob's unlucky. Sorry. Rob says slugs have been have had most of my pongo beans that Bill and Val gave us. They've had all my beans, so I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Nigel says I use slug pellets sparingly under nets where possible. Only lost 2 parsnip seedlings. They got in before I got the pellets down. Now, as I said at the beginning, I don't like to kill anything. I don't like to use slug pellets, but I'm not going to criticize anybody for using it. It is perfectly usable, acceptable to use them. So I used to use them in the past, I'll be honest, and they do work. They do work. It's the ongoing problems that I have with it. But and as Nigel has said, he's got nets over, so the wildlife is less likely to eat them, which again, that can work quite well. Over on Instagram, bearded growers have joined. Turbo Extreme, my home garden is festooned with slugs. Certainly no predators around here. I've never seen a bird take a slug. Any reason I don't bother growing veg at home, plus it faces northwest and too shady. Absolutely. Absolutely. Northwest shade. And that's the trouble. That's why we're getting so many slugs and snails this year, because it's so cool for them. It's perfect conditions for them. And we've had a warm winter, so they haven't been killed off over winter either. Philly SBB has joined. Welcome along. And he says, don't start the shipyard gardener on snails. Why? Has he had problems as well? Rob says, even had the meat in my tomato plants. My tomatoes are the only one that hasn't been affected by slugs and snails. Weirdly, they don't seem to have eaten my tomato plants. So that was a good mission for me. Digwell says, that is a problem with a deterrent type non-killing sprays. They just go somewhere else to eat, which I don't mind. They've got to eat something. And if they're not, this is my logic. It doesn't work, but it's my logic. If they're not eating my plants, the chances are they're going to eat the weeds, because why don't they eat weeds? Why aren't they eating the weeds? This is the annoying thing. I want them to eat my weeds. I'm happy they can eat the weeds all day long, but they don't. Why don't they? Why don't they? Question I'm asking out there. If you know the answer, let me know. Tell me, Stu, I've fed better on the allotment. I made this year's mission to keep clearing the weeds with the hoe. Lost a few plants, but always lose a few. Sometimes you do make losses, and it's fine. It's just the way it goes sometimes. It's when you're making complete losses that it becomes a problem, which is what I'm having. Anna Jones says, French beans have been my worst cop. Only a few left after the slug onslaught. But doing better than me. I've got none. No French beans, no runner beans, no Belotti beans, none. I've bought them, I've grown them from seed, nothing. As soon as they're planted, they're gone in overnight. Idaho says, I'm not eating slugs or snails unless I'm starving. I've eaten snails. Not exactly the most pleasant thing, but they're just like eating, I don't know, I would describe them as eating mussels. Digwell says there are more than 40 species of slug in Britain, but less than a quarter of these are known to be live plant munching pest species. Most eat decaying vegetation and meat. This is why they are quite important, actually, because in the compost bin, that's where you want them, because they're going to eat that decaying vegetation. They're going to help with the composting process. So definitely something we need, but we need to carry on. Nigel says, I love snails in a buttery garlic sauce. I knew there would be somebody that says it. I knew there would be. It is quite pleasant, actually. It's just like mussels, but you've just got to get over, if you do eat them like that, you've got to get over the fact that they are snails. Slug pellets for me, and yeah. Again, I've got no problem with slug pellets. I don't use them, but I've got no problem with other people using them. I think removing the weeds, taking away debris, and nowhere for them to hide. Well, that's the next thing. That's the next thing, actually. This is something that was alluded to earlier, that keeping the plots away from hiding spaces work, or is a way of tackling them. And actually, I feel we could use this to our advantage. And I'll show you. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. I think we can use them to our advantage. If we're trying to keep our plots tidy, not leaving dead or decaying material around for them to use and places for them to hide. However, we give them one place to hide, we can use that. I try and go out every night and do a slug and snail hunt where I collect them all the slugs and snails I see into a bucket and give to the chickens the next day. But you did set me a mission last week to create a slug trap without using plastic. This is what I came up with. Okay, so for this week's mission, you set me to set up a slug and snail trap, without using plastic. What I've done, one terracotta pot, upside down, overnight, and there you go. Loads and loads, one fell out there. Loads and loads of slugs and snails. Now, as you know, I don't like using poisons, I don't like killing anything, so all these will be fed to their chickens. In my opinion, that's mission accomplished. But vote now, let me know if you think it is. What do you think? Is that mission accomplished or mission failed? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. We'll vote now. Mission accomplished, mission failed. I think it's accomplished, but that's me. That's me. So coming back to the comments, Chili Kate says, I use natural deterrents as a first offence, encouraging nature and using wool pellets and strolch. But at times of highest pressure, I do use slug pellets too. Not got a problem with it. And I'm very close to giving up and trying slug pellets, to be honest. Jenny says, around in the ground veg beds, in polytunnels and seedling beds, I plant lavender, curry herb, lamb's ears, thyme, rosemary. They do not like the texture of or heavily scented foliage. Also dried bramble stems. Again, bramble stems, another way of eluding or trying to make it uncomfortable for slugs and snails. Now, my compost, I do chop up some or add eggshells to it. And when I more in my wormery, this is what I also do now is when I empty out my compost from the wormery, I run it through my sieve, and that crushes up all those eggshells into a nice small bit, which then goes into the soil and should, in theory, once we build up enough of it, make it less likely that slugs and snails are going to like it. In theory, and I think it will work. And I found this also, coffee grounds had a great way. I used to, in my old house particularly, I put all the coffee grounds around in the bed. Slugs and snails did not go across it at all. Quite thick. I think because it was quite a grainy texture and the slugs and snails just couldn't get it off their body, they didn't like it. So it worked for me. Nigel says, and this is a point actually, our chicken run has lots of huge slugs, but the birds completely ignore them. They want the small ones. That's what they're generally after. The chickens tend to like the smaller slugs, just because they've got to try and fit it into their mouth. They don't have teeth, so they can't cut the things like they would or like we would. So they're looking for the small ones, which are likely to be the babies. So your huge slugs, if you're not getting the small ones follow them on, once the huge slugs die out, they won't be reproducing more. Is the theory. No, Digwell, we were talking about hedgehogs. I'm going to have to skip quite a few comments because there's a lot of conversation in on this tonight. Digwell says, it's funny how greenwashing sites say hedgehogs are essential in removing slugs, but hedgehog sites say the opposite. I know only one, I believe, which is the wildlife online. There's no evidence that hedgehogs have a discernible impact on slug numbers in the gardens, but many gardeners consider them allies in pest control. So you are right. They don't have a huge discernible impact. For me, it's more about the whole ecosystem. If you've got hedgehogs, you're going to have birds, you're going to have other animals there as well, all of which work together. Hedgehogs on its own are not enough. It's about having everything in place to bring the pest controls in. That's my thing. I do like hedgehogs, as you know. It's having everything in place. Right, I'm gonna skip. Where do we go? We're trying to find a lot of people talking about this because it's one of those subjects I think people really want to talk about. Digwell says slugs only make up about 4 to 5% of a hedgehog's diet. Slugs can have lungworm parasite, which is a deadly to a hedgehog. Yeah. What have we got? What have we got? Idaho says, I've tried to get my chickens to eat slugs and snails. The chickens take one look at me and then look at me with disdain. Yuck. Are you totally crazy? I lay the big ones. Try the small ones and tell me if that makes it any better. For me, there's nothing more satisfying when I hear a chicken just go crunch on a snail shell. Plus, it bit of protein for the birds as well. Jenny says slugs predators are birds, foxes, newts, slowworms, grass snakes, rats, foxes, and badgers. For the best snail predators, you need the above, particularly thrushes. Leave some large stones around. Yeah, it is. As I say, it's all about the ecosystem, all in all, for me, and particularly the seagulls that we have here. They're very partial to slugs and snails, very partial. I've seen them eat them. I've seen them go for them. I love them. Buddy Cillian says, no matter how tidy I keep the plots, on 3 sides of mine have been abandoned and turned into a jungle. Yeah, that is a problem with my allotment as well. And it's not pleasant, is it? It's not fun when that happens. Nigel says, I met someone the other day who takes a pair of scissors to a slugs. Well, this comes back to what I was saying earlier. Every night I go out and I try and collect as many slugs and snails as possible. I don't cut them. I'm too much of a softie. I don't like killing any animals. I don't do that. But that is something you can do. You could cut them with a pair of scissors, put them on a bird table, and let the birds eat them. Again, it's options. It is options. It's not what I do. It is options. Right. I really don't like this. I saw this. Nigel says, next week's challenge, Chef Scott create a snail recipe. Richard cook it and eat it on next week's show. Chef Scott is away. He's going to the Isle of Wight. So hopefully he's not going to be able to do that. But of course, it's up to you guys. I really don't want to do it. I really don't. Because it's not pleasant. But if you guys set me this mission, what you want me to do, I will do. Stuart says, I've started using pots to catch slugs and snails. It's worked well, and they are placed in someone else's garden. We got to remember, I don't know about slugs on this, but I know certainly snails, they have a homing beacon, a bit like pigeons. They can find their way back to where they came from. So you could, unless it's I can't remember how many miles away, something like 5 miles. And if it's over 5 miles, they're unlikely to come back. But less than that, there's a strong chance they will make their way back into your garden. I don't know if it's the same for slugs, but I know it's certainly for snails. Graham says, yes, next week, a nice snail risotto. I've got friends around on Sunday as well. That's not going to be fun. Seaweed is a good slug deterrent due to its salt content. I used dry seaweed around the base of plants. The sharp texture will also make it difficult for slugs to move over. Now, you know how much I love using seaweed as mulches anyway, particularly on my asparagus, which is interesting actually because we don't get slugs or snails in our asparagus. So there's definitely something in it. So if you are near the coast like me, it might be worth every now and then, going to go and get some seaweed to help with that. Rob says we have 2 badger sets on the allotment site, so hopefully they will eat some. I tell you what, badgers are fascinating because I know they eat worms and they literally suck worms out of the soil. I've seen videos of them doing it. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I'm pretty sure they eat slugs and snails, and I think that was one of the ones that Jenny said as well. I haven't seen a badger for a number of years now, actually. Um, I'm thinking about it. Jenny says, I don't think eggshells help. Our old African learned snails ate eggshells for calcium. They loved them. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the gritty texture more than anything they don't like. And Chili Cake says, modern slug pellets are misunderstood. Metal hydride pellets were banned a few years ago, which is true. And the iron phosphate alternative are considered organic and do not harm other wildlife. Um, I'm not going to dispute that, but I'm always wary of manufacturers' claims when it's something so what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But I'm always wary of manufacturers' claims until I know more about it. I don't know enough about wildlife. I don't know enough about whether or iron phosphate will harm them. Um, as I said, I don't like to kill anything. I'm just soft like that. Over on Nothing Happening on Instagram, I just don't like to kill anything, regardless of what it is. I'd sooner nature comes along and eats it. That's my thing. That's my thing. Richard Golden has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well, my friend. Kate says, I've been watching hedgehogs on camera at night and there are always slugs around the food I pot out, and Dave always ignores them, eats around them. Is that because he's getting enough food from what you're giving him? This is sometimes a question you have to ask, particularly. Um, some animals will eat and eat and eat as much as possible, but there are some animals that once they're full, they won't eat anymore. And sometimes, like, I only put a certain amount of bird feed out so that it's enough to attract them in, but then they think, oh, I've had that, I could do with a bit more. Let's go find some slugs and snails. That's my theory. My theory. I'm hoping it would work. I'm hoping I'm right. Stuart Jackson says, I've been using eggshells in the greenhouse, and as long as you lay them thick around the edge of the pot, it works well. But my hedgehog eats few this year. Like chickens, they don't eat many. It's all, as I said earlier, for me, it's all about the entire dynamic. It's not just hedgehogs on their own, it's the birds, the slow worms, the frogs, the toads, all coming together and eating everything. Scott says, lucky for you, Richard, I'm away. Thank you about although Nigel says, you missed Scott's comment below my snail challenge. What did he say? Because he's just said, I am away. We're going to get, yeah. Jenny says, I've told a large Instagram off for bragging about cutting slugs in half. No need upsetting and not on. They lost a lot of followers that day. Again, something I do want to say, I don't kill slugs and snails. I don't cut them in half myself. I'm happy for birds to do them. But what I don't want to do is start anybody that comes up with that comment today. It's open. It's debate. We're open to suggestions. I don't want to get any arguments about this, if that makes sense. I want it to be an open debate, a friendly debate. Debbie Stream says, I tried coffee grounds and eggshells. Didn't make any difference. The slugs ate the lot. It does. When it comes to the coffee grounds, it needs to be quite thick, not just sprinkled around. I mean, you treat it like you're laying a load of compost down. It worked. It did work for me. Digler says, occasionally find a big snail. We have quite a Roman history here, and they were brought over by them. Very common around Cirencester. Very common near me as well. We got Chichester. We've Roman. We've got a Roman thing just down the road as well. Actually, remember? Yeah, Roman history goes on all over the country, though, doesn't it? And did they actually bring snails in, or were snails here before they came? Right. Crikey, I just seeing what's going on. There's lots of comments. Digwell, ferrous phosphate slugs pellets. Some vet reports in the USA about dogs eating large quantities of pellets falling ill. UK pellets are treated with a better substance to stop this. Bitter substance. Yeah. I saw a video where a dog had a puppy as well, had eaten a load of that slug and snail pellets and became quite ill. So that's partly why I'm always worried about. I don't want Roxy getting ill, but the bitter substance is something I have heard we do in the UK. Digwell says, when I lifted some weed membrane, there were frogs and toads there next to the slugs. Again, they might have been full up. This is what you got to remember, like us. There's only so much we can eat. As much as we try and eat more, there's only so much we can eat. When you're full, you can't eat much more. Rob says, I've never seen a toad or frog eat slugs. They are going to be there. They are going to be there. I'm just going to have a quick for the. Stuart says, snails can only find their way home if they can see. Key points being big trees and buildings. They use things to navigate, not as successful as mice. I thought they had like a bit like pigeons, a navigation system somehow and could find their way back. But they are clever because they will use, if they can't get to something that you've protected, they will use branches to try and lower themselves like a crane almost onto where they want to get. And I've seen them even outstretching, trying to get from branch to branch. Digwell then says, challenge for next week, use a shell and earth that's been on the shelf for 6 months and see if it actually works against slugs. This stuff, yeah, this stuff is meant to work, but I think this is, yeah, I could use that. That could be a challenge. We're all debating about this, whether Scott's going to be able to come up with a recipe in time. I'm hoping not. That could be another challenge, of course. Right, so far, so we've discussed what you do to tackle slugs and snails, as well as we've established everybody is having problems with them. Moving forward, what can we do to try and stop this from happening in the future? What do you think we would need to do, say over winter when our beds are empty, try and stop the slugs and snails coming back? I personally think we need a really cold winter, not cold that it kills our plants, of course, but cold enough that it will kill some of these slugs and snails that are in the garden. And then I think we need to encourage and reduce the numbers of them as well, which again, I think comes down to the amount of birds that we have. I meant to say that, yes, we've seen an increase in slugs and snails in our garden, but we've also seen an increase in birds in our garden as well, which, despite having Roxy, is quite miraculous. We may have helped that we don't have cats coming into our garden anymore, of course, as well, but we've got a lot more birds coming in. And there's Charles Darwin suggested, the more you have of one species, say slugs and snails, the more you're going to have predators come in, which I think is part of the food chain, isn't it? It makes more sense. This is why I encourage nature to do the work for me. Right, Graham says beer traps. That's something we haven't actually talked about, is it? Beer traps. So what a beer trap is usually made out of plastic. It's something a container, let's say take this glass and use it as an example. You'd sink that into the ground, you put some beer into it, probably, I don't know how much, probably that much. I don't drink, so it was absolutely irrelevant for me, but probably put that much beer into it, quite a yeasty smell. A slug and snail would come along and think, oh, that smells good. They would go down, they'll drink some of that beer, they'll get drunk, and then they'll try and climb out, and they won't be able to because they're so drunk, they just fall back in. And that's meant to drown slugs and snails. And I know it works because a lot of people have said it works. Again, it stinks when you empty them. I don't drink. I think that's a waste of beer as well, although it might also give you a reason to open a can every night. My question I have about how that works, you guys might be able to answer them. How that works, when I find slugs and snails particularly more in my watering cans. They survive in the water. They don't seem to mind being underwater. Yet beer, they seem to drowning. Can anybody explain that? It's getting a bit hot tonight. Right. Brian's garden, polytunnel. Hello and welcome, my friend. Grandad grew over 60 brassicas on his plot in his day. He picked any caterpillars off on a daily basis. I don't grow so many, so I do the same. Yeah, that's the same with slugs and snails. You could pick them on a daily basis and try and give them to the birds. Would be great, wouldn't it? Jenny said, challenge idea, plant a companion planting mix to help with the slugs. That's another one we can add to the list. See if it works. On occasions, we get badgers and foxes in our back garden at home. We do get foxes in our garden, not badgers, but foxes. Don't like the things because they usually come in for my chickens. Cheap B not San Miguel, Rob. Talking about beer, I think there. Jenny says, I don't trap, but some people use an old sourdough starter, the yeasty. I think it is the yeast that attracts them. Yeah, I think it's the yeast, isn't it, that attracts them. But how do they survive in that, but survive in water, sorry, but not in that? I feed the birds away from the veg so I don't get problems for pigeons. Again, I don't get that many problems. Beer traps on the allotment. No slugs, but I spotted another plot holder wobbling home. He's drinking it for you. He's drinking it for you. Scott says, I have already done the recipe for when I'm away, so I think you have dodged the challenge, Richard. And Nigel comes back. Thanks, Scott, talking about this snail recipe, garlic eating snail for the challenge. Somebody else you could always get somebody else to submit a recipe, Nigel. I would not waste good beer on them. Garlic snails easy. Boil in the shell for 3 minutes. Remove the shell. Boil for 30 minutes. Melt butter. Add minced garlic. Brown it in a few minutes. Add snails. Warm through and serve. I couldn't kill them. That's the thing I can't do. I cannot kill them, which is wrong because I do eat meat. Digwa, don't waste beer. Just use water, sugar, and yeast. I come back to the question: how is it they can survive in watering cans of water, but not in beer or things like that? Beer traps are great if you empty them every morning or it smells. I only use value beer, 4 cans for about £2 in Asda. That like Tenant Super or something like it used to be called, or White Lightning. That could work, isn't it? It's pretty cheap. And looked at the prices lately, so I have no idea. With slugs and snails, I don't think about companion planting, but sacrificial planting. What plants do you use to sacrifice for them? What's more sacrificial for slugs and snails, Brian? That's a question. That is the question I would like to know because it's something I've been asking. Why don't they eat weeds? Why is it always our veg that they eat? Why? What can we plant that would be sacrificial for slugs and snails and attract them more? That would be great. Why is it they survive in water but not in beer? Questions like that. Kate says, I lived in Portugal where it was normal to eat snails. Actually quite nice when cooked with garlic and a little chili. As I said, I have eaten snails. And I admit, it isn't too bad once you get over the mental block that we tend to put up here in the UK. The only problem I have with them, or the only problem I have with it, is I don't want to kill them. I really don't want to kill them. That's my trouble. They love marigolds as a sacrificial planting, and lettuce seedlings are good for attracting slugs and snails as well, which makes sense because they love eating our slugs and snails, don't they? Oh, time for a swig. At this point, I'd just like to say, if you are enjoying this chat and want to get more of this sort of chat, please do give us a like. Please do give us a thumbs up, a follow, and a subscribe. But I come back to the question that I was asking earlier. What can we do in the future to try and reduce these slugs and snails? Now, I'm thinking out loud, and I'm thinking one thing that I should probably do, and I've been thinking about this for a while, is putting in a nice little pond. Now, I used to use an old washing up bottle, and it's actually there under my tables, which was for slugs and snails. And I think that's a little bit too small, but I think if I put in a nice pond that might bring in the frogs and the toads to eat and reduce the amount of slugs and snails. Of course, I want to grow edibles in my pond, so we could grow wasabi and watercress in there. So it's going to stay with the edibles, of course, but other ideas I have at the same time. My my wife doesn't want ponds in our garden, but I think I think I need to. What have we got? Rob says I have had frog's legs. Me too. Taste just like chicken, actually, don't they? Again, it's the mental block we pot up, but they taste just like chicken. They also loved my dahlias. Yeah, dahlias have been attacked by them. Nematodes. Turbo stream. That was something that I did have on my list of things to mention. Nematodes. Now, if you've never heard of nematodes or don't know what they are, nematodes are a natural predator of slugs and snails. Or depend. Well, there's nematodes for a wide range of things, but there are some specifically for slugs and snails, and they're microscopic things that live in the soil, and you have to water them in, put them into a watering can, water them in, let them get into the soil, and then they will slowly go and run around the soil and slowly kill your slugs and snails. The trouble with them, one, they're quite expensive, um, and you need to apply them more than once. You need to apply them several times. And the other trouble is, if you're doing your garden, but your neighbour isn't, there could also be them coming in from there. But, I think this year we should probably look at doing nematodes in my garden to try and reduce the amount that we have. And they're completely harmless. When, as I was saying earlier, when they run out of slugs and snails to attack, they will just die out in the soil. So there we go. There we go. It was there is definitely a safe way of doing it. Brian says, if you try to reduce slugs and snails, you'll never win. God, the trouble is they've had such a good year this year that they've multiplied and they don't like by now we should be in some hot sun because it's been so wet, the numbers just are not being knocked down enough. And that's the thing. Could you put copper tape around the raised beds? Would it work? Now that is another thing actually. Copper around pots does work. The trouble is slugs and snails do live in the soil, so they could actually come up through the raised bed already. But copper, they don't like passing over copper or something. It's either the taste or gives them an electric shock or something like that. But copper tape I've got on certain things that Autopot, actually, my Autopot, they've got this like a seed tray that keeps it watered. You probably heard me talking about these quite a bit. Or I've got discount codes as well for them. That's why I bring it up as well. But they've got this, like the seed tray, you can put copper tape all the way around it to keep slugs and snails away, which I think is actually quite a good idea. But copper tape is something else we could do. Scott says, for the challenge, you could try snail caviar, but 75 grams for 75 pounds for 70 grams is expensive. But I'm sure we could all chip in a couple of pounds just to see the reaction. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Jenny says, unpopular comment warning. I don't think we should do anything about the numbers. There, I said it. I know what you're saying, Jenny, and I kind of agree. Actually, what you're saying is that the pests, the birds, the wildlife that eats the slugs and snails are going to increase if we don't reduce the numbers. And you're probably right. You're probably right. I don't know that there were frogs left on the. I don't know. Did not know there were frogs left on the. I did not know there were frogs legs on the menu. They were called mountain chicken. We've all done it. We've all done it. Richard, you can buy canned snails already dead. Tell me where from if you want that challenge. If you want that challenge. I'm only going to do one challenge next week. So it's one or the other. Vaseline will work on a pot, but would wash off after time. Probably get funny looks if you go to the chemist and ask for a load of it. You can buy it in bulk on Amazon in big tubs as well. But that's just a type of petroleum jelly, a grease thing. thing. 95% of slugs in a garden are underground. Nematodes kill slugs underground, good ones as well as the bad ones, so it should only be used in a targeted manner. Talking about the nematodes we mentioned earlier. A nematslug does not in general kill snails as they are not underground. See, the big factory for these nematodes, which is actually about a mile that way from my house, the biggest factory, I think it's in Europe, but certainly in the UK, is only over there. I really should go pop along and see if we can do something with them one day, shouldn't I? I always use nematodes on my potato patch. They seem to work really well on slugs, but not snails. That kind of answers what we were talking about, what Digwell just said. It's because they're in the soil, in the underground. Anne says, we've had a small pond on the allotment and our neighbours followed suit. Frogs thrived and they definitely helped reduce the slug snail population. So we're not allowed ponds on our allotment, so it's not an option we could do down on the allotment. But I'm thinking a subtly hidden washing up bowl probably wouldn't go unnoticed. What do you think? Stuart Jackson says, am I right in thinking that slugs go underground in winter? I know snails lay eggs. You're right, they do go underground. That's like anything, they try and keep warm as well. And yeah, they do go underground is what I'm trying to say. Any wood lying around is perfect for their eggs on the underside. Absolutely, yeah. Anything damp, they are going to be attracted to. That was the other thing I tried to do was a damp piece of wood, but I didn't get any slugs or snails. The slime reacts with copper to create a small electric charge that irritates the slugs. That's what I thought. It works. And if we use copper tape around our way, the dillies would sniff it out a mile away and come and nick it. If you get the right stuff, it wouldn't be worth them nicking, to be honest. But I've got a load of copper just outside the front. Nobody ever steals it. Trouble is, most plots are of a traditional nature, too sterile. We're talking about what? What was that about? Oh, talking about the numbers. I'm guessing. Ryan says, I got funny looks when I buy nail varnish remover. I have to tell them it's to clean my plant labels. Or just say it's for the wife, treating the wife. Acetone, isn't it? Nail varnish remover. If I see slugs on the allotment, they get transferred to the compost bins. They can munch away in there. Good tip, actually. Very good tip. A single slug lays up to 100 eggs several times a year. When slugs mate, both get pregnant. Slug eggs can lay dormant for years and only hatch when the conditions are right. Yeah, slugs and snails are hermaphrodites, aren't they? They have both male and female parts. Yeah. Good luck, Richard, on the mini pond. I will pop money on Amanda noticing. Of course you will. You're right, Digwell, on a mission to educate. Talking about the numbers, of course. Right, I'm going to have a swig of this. I tell you what, let's do this sew along this video because I think this is something I need your help with. Tell me a bit more about how to grow chicory. Right, it's time for this week's sew along. And this week it is chicory. So what I'm actually doing slightly different, I'm sewing this first load into these trays. And I'm going to be sowing quite a few of these seeds over the coming weeks. So I'm just spreading it out. I just want this one to see what it's like. These are the seeds. They're fairly small. They remind me a bit of lettuce. And I'm only taking a few, trying to get them in reasonably distance apart to make it easier for thinning them out, because I think we're going to have to thin these out and grow them on. I'm just going to tap that down a little bit and then just add a little covering of compost as well, and we will leave these to germinate. Now once they germinate, I will prick them out, put them into plug trainers and let them grow on, and then we will put them in the garden and grow them on. Now I did read something about forcing them and various things like that, which is something I think we should discuss back in the studio. Now let's carry on and share with you some of the other seeds that we have sown. So that is the spinach from a few weeks ago, which we are eating quite nicely, although one of the concerns was about it going to seed. Looks like it's starting potentially, but we are harvesting plenty of those. Last week we've sown some of this mustard that has started to show itself quite nicely. And here these French beans still have not germinated. I think that is a bit of a roundup. Back to the studio. There we go. So chicory. How do you grow chicory? Do they get eaten by slugs and snails as well? I've grown chicory many times in the past. It's I treat them just like lettuce really. But I was reading when doing a bit of research that it's worth at some point trying to sort of blanch them and exclude light to make them taste better. Now on that, Brian Garden Polytunnel says chicory is extremely bitter. It's an acquired taste. I like bitter. I love bitter. Um, so I don't mind it being bitter. But yeah, each to their own. Each to their own. What was it? What was it? Will forcing chicory, will that make it less bitter? I don't know. I don't know. There was a change of name because I've sent chicory out in the supporters club for August, and in the newspaper it does say a bit more about forcing and what we have to do. It's one of those, I don't think many people really grow chicory on an allotment. It's not really commonly grown, probably because it's not commonly eaten for reasons as Brian just said. It's quite a bitter tasting vegetable. I mean, I love it. A bit like radicchio as well, isn't it? The red version of chicory, as I like to think of it. Quite bitter, but I think it's lovely. But I would, because I like bitter food. What have we got? What have we got? Chicons taste just as bitter. That's the word I was looking for. Chicons, which is what you do when you, or what they become, or another name for them once they've been forced. But yeah, I like it. I love the stuff. Chicory would be good for slug defense. Could it be good for slug defense? I don't know. Don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out. Digwell says, I hope so, as I've sent Whitloff out to my sea club to force. Were you in a sea? What sea club are you in, Digwell? Or is it one you run? Turbo Stream, I tried chicory, not keen on bitter either. I love bitter. I personally love bitter, but each to their own, as I said. Sometimes I think if you're only used to what you would buy, you wouldn't really find chicory in a supermarket, to be fair, more likely greengrocers. But if you grow your own, I still think it tastes better than even compared to a supermarket. Oh, that's better. I needed that. I needed that. I grew chicory last year and it was extremely bitter, better cooked for my taste. Love it. Love it. Any pests known to eat couch grass and chickweed? Good question. That is a very good question. Any pests? Any pests? Any pests? Any pests? They eat couch grass and chickweed. Sorry, I'm just seeing this. Run, I'm in the club too. Best thing I ever did. Whose club are you in? Trying to think. Trying to think. On my YouTube club, members get 6 packs of seeds a month. Oh, right, okay, I'm with you. I did not know that. I don't watch much YouTube. 6 packs of seeds. I do exactly the same with the supporters club. Tested much stronger than Shub bot. Oh, Steve's. Right. Yeah, I do exactly the same with my supporters club for the podcast, as people will know. Was it essence of chicory to make camp coffee? It was. It was. Yeah, and I can't remember how they made it, but camp coffee had it as is chicory coffee, basically. I can't remember how they make it though. Jennings says, I found water the chicory a lot before picking and grown in a little shade is less bitter. Still bitter, but nice. balanced out with other ingredients. It's true, isn't it? Bitter foods do need something to counteract the um, the bitterness. But grown in shade makes them less bitter as well, which is certainly something I easily do. I tend to grow chicory more as a sort of autumn winter crop, um, where it is much more shadier anyway. So yeah, yeah, excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. There we go. Idaho says dried chicory, toasted and ground. So dehydrate the chicory, then toast it in a dry frying pan, I guess. Grind it down to a powder, and there you go, camp coffee. As easy as that. I haven't. Do they still sell camp coffee? I don't know. Camp coffee will get you dairy. Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. So coming back to the slugs and snails, is anybody going to be doing anything special to try and beat slugs and snails in coming years? As I said, I'm going to be making a pond because I think that's an important way to go forward. Oh, chicory root. It's chicory root, is it? That's used. My nana used to have camp coffee. Terrible stuff. I've not drunk it in years, but I do like bitter stuff, so I probably would like it. Yes, they do. My ex loved the stuff. We've probably got some here, to be honest, knowing what our cupboards are like. I think you can still buy it. And Stuart Jackson says camp coffee is about £2 in the supermarket. Indeed. Scott, would chicory work well in those wraps you made? Oh, yeah. The salad wraps. Would they work well in that? Almost as bad as sterilized milk. Isn't all milk sterilized? Isn't all milk pasteurized is a type of sterilization, or do you mean homogenized, or what's the other thing they tend to do or known to do? Skimmed milk is the word I'm looking, because I cannot stand skimmed milk. Funny you mentioned milk, actually. Funny story today. We took the dog for a walk, as we do pretty much every day, and we went to where was it? We went to a woods over that way. A nice long walk. But we had heard nearby in a town hall there was a milk vending machine. We had to go and check it out. And it turns out there's a local farm, basically. They're selling their organic free range milk in a vending. You take a bottle, or you can buy a bottle there as well. Scan your card, debit card, credit card, and put it in there, put your bottle in there. It sterilizes the bottle, fills your bottle up, and off you go. It's about £1.50 for 2 pints, but it is the amazingly tasting milk. Really nice and fresh, really nice and creamy, whole milk, and it's local. Absolutely lovely. Definitely something we're doing more of in the future. Right, well, lots of comments coming as that. Stigma says slug lime is highly absorbent, so water just makes it more effective and harder to wash off your hands. Use vinegar to remove the slime from your hands. Yeah, absolutely. UHT milk. Oh, sterilized milk lasts for 12 months. Yeah, UHT milk with you now. The stuff you often get in ultra high temp milk. You usually get in your hotel rooms for making coffees overnight, don't you? Personally, I mean, we've had UHT milk in the past, but like in a camper van, I use Coffee Mate powdered coffee, which isn't as good as, of course, fresh coffee, but it's better than UHT in my eyes, and it can stay in the van all day. We don't have a fridge in the camper van, so everything has to be high temp. My Jack Russell loves couch grass, but she hasn't learned to remove other weeds yet. Ah, yeah, my dog loves eating grass in general, but doesn't remove other weeds either. She removed my plants though. That's a good tip, Digwell. Raw milk is amazing, but you can't buy it. You can. We got a place just down another farm actually that does sell raw milk. I think there's somewhere online you can buy raw milk as well. It's delicious, isn't it? Raw milk, absolutely delicious. Um, Talking about vinegar on the hands when you're washing off slug slime, make sure you don't have no cuts on your hand when you're using vinegar, of course. Scott, and like you say on other things in the balance out the bitter would work. Talking about the using chicory in the wraps. I know says good dog to Anne, and my grandma used to use sterilized milk with her camp coffee UHT. I always call it UHT milk for some reason. So that's why sterilized milk threw me. What's evaporated milk or condensed milk as well was the other one, wasn't it? That you what's the similarities between the two? Turbo Stream won't be trying to kill off slugs or home grow things that they don't eat on the allotment. Just keep things tidy and accept they will eat stuff. I agree. We agree with you on that. There are loads of those near to me talking about the milk vending machine. They do milkshakes too. Yeah, we bought a milkshake as well. Um, really nice, really, really nice. I've got to say, and delicious, delicious. UHT ultra high temp, yeah, and sterilized and UHT are different. So what's sterilized? What's sterilized milk? What's sterilized milk then? I thought I had it. What's the difference? What's the difference? Digler says you can buy raw milk here, but they have to face many regular tests, and you are not allowed to give it to young kids. I'll just sell it. I don't know if there's any restrictions on it. I love it. I quite like it though. I do quite like it. Again, it's expensive and not really possible to do every day. But with these vending machines, we're going to use a lot more of because it's kind of cool and it's organic, free range, everything we like. Evaporated milk is unsweetened, while condensed milk is sweetened. What's the difference between evaporated milk, condensed milk, and UHT then? You can get sterilized milk in pint bottles, and the milkman still delivers it. Really? Well, I've never heard of sterilized milk. I've heard of UHT, which is what I thought you were talking about, but I've never heard of sterilized. Obviously, something they probably don't do around here. Steri is batch treated. UHT is made by continuous flow process. Okay. Absolutely full fat raw milk, the beautiful fat layer on the top, hand milked by my kids, so special in every way. Absolutely. Idaho says we have pasteurized milk over here. Might be the same as sterilized. No, pasteurized milk is what we usually have. Or most commonly sold. We got homogenized as well, or filtered, such as Cravenfell, which is filtered, which is also just as good. But raw milk is, as I understand it, raw milk is just filtered milk, but basically no other processing, which makes sense. Sterilized milk is produced by in-container sterilization. UHT milk is sterilized by continuous flow and aseptically filled into sterile containers. Oh, so sterilized milk is sort of potted, basically canning is what you're talking. Sterilized milk is canned milk. Is that what you're saying? That my understanding. Am I getting that right? I use half evaporated milk and half condensed milk when making milk jelly. I've never heard of milk jelly. Oh, I'll give that a try one day. I actually do better direct sowing beans on the allotment. The slugs seem to leave them alone mostly. Had more losses when I grew in modules and transplant. It might be something that I struggle with as well, actually. Condensed milk you can use to make banoffee pie. Yep, we do. Toffee. Yeah, toffee. Melt some toffees and add some condensed milk. And there you go. Bananas and pie. Oh, banoffee pie is one of my favourites. I haven't had it in a while. As a boy, I drank raw milk all the time as a dad worked on the farm. So he was given 2 pints every day. I loved it. Yeah, raw milk is lovely. Steri tends to come in tall bottles with a beer bottle top. I've never seen sterilized. Never seen sterilized. So this is very new to me. Long neck bottle with an old-fashioned tops on. Never seen it. Never seen it at all. Raw milk is filtered. Pasteurized is heat treated too. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's my understanding of raw milk is, excuse me, it's filtered because there's a lot of stuff you don't really want in there that comes out the cow. But there's a lot of pasteurized is just boiled, basically, to pasteurize it to kill off anything bad in there. Raw milk is just chilled, nothing else added. Yep. Great minds think alike there. UHT, full fat in my tea and coffee, but I'm thinking that milk might be affecting my sinuses, so I've cut right down on milk consumption. I just love milk. I like milk. Thumbs up from Digrel. Please do give us a thumbs up, a follow, subscribe. Don't forget to click the notifications so you know when we go live. Carnation evaporated milk on some fruit chunks. Oh, fruit, yummy, yummy. Oh, yeah, my nan used to do that. My nan used to do that. Oh, you got me reminiscing now. Go to Tesco, Richard. I've never seen it in Tesco's. Trust me, I've spent a lot of time in supermarket fridges. And in the baking aisles, we've got UHT milk. I've definitely seen UHT milk included in big cartons, but not sterilized. Not sterilized at all. That's fascinating. That's fascinating for me. I've learned something tonight. It's something I've never heard of and never seen. So I will be keeping my eye out for sterilized. Right, let's have a look at your photos quickly, but of course, keep the conversation going. Now, first of all, TurboStream has shared this photo of a bramble he uses to keep the slugs away from his bean plants. Seems to work as well, he says. So, works fantastic, fantastic. Shipyard and Philly, they've been having the essentials going on the allotment. That's some bacon and toast going on right there while working on the allotment. I think they said, or Philly said to me, they were down on the allotment at 5:30 this morning, and that got going. Steve has picked these onions. The variety was Elisa Craig, and he's put a phone there to see the size or to compare the size. It looks like a good load of onions. When did you sow these onions? Because we're doing Elisa Craig as a seed of the month for August with Premier Seeds Direct. New discount code for Premier Seeds coming up as well. But we're going to sow some in August and some in Christmas as well. Scott's been asking about these Belotti beans. Whether you have to wait for them to dry before harvesting them, or can you use them fresh? And I think you could use them fresh, but let us know what your thoughts are. Kate has passed her RHS Module 3 with a high score. I believe this was about soil health, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, very, very well done. 73 out of 80. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Excellent work indeed. Stuart's got this cucumber in his veggie pod, which I've got to say, we've had a good year for cucumbers this year. I don't know about anybody else, but this year our cucumbers have done fantastic. Very, very happy with them. Now, Beddoes, of course, is humour. Somebody's been planting a row of M&Ms, but I wonder, could you end up growing an M&M tree? Makes you think, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be cool if we could grow an M&M tree? Now, Nathan's allotment has had a bit of clearing done, and they've uncovered a walnut tree, which are lovely. Love walnuts, and it would be a fantastic addition on any allotment to be able to harvest walnuts. Now, Anne's local show next weekend. This is down in Cowdrey, in Midhurst. I'm thinking of going along myself if I get time. 3:15 in Cowdrey Hall. Looks fantastic. There was a nice picture of the stuff that are there. I guess the produce show is starting to come along, and I should try and get out to more. But I might go next weekend if I get time. I've got a busy weekend next weekend, so I might pop along and wonder. Are dogs allowed? Are dogs allowed there, Anne? Let us know. Please do keep sharing your photos. Post them in our Facebook group. Send to me via social media or email me, richard@theveggiegroundpodcast.co.uk. Right, where were we? Where were we? Where were we? Carnation on pineapple and it all curdles. Yeah, I was thinking peaches as well. Peaches and can't remember condensed milk. Almond milk is washed and that's it. No filter, etc. But they don't sell it, I guess. Rules can be bent. Washed milk, wouldn't that just water it down? Or what's it washed with? Richard, it's not in the fridges. No, yeah, I realised that as I said it. But I've spent a lot of time in the bakery sections as well, especially when I was into what you might call the prepping world, where you're trying to survive the apocalypse sort of thing. And I've never seen sterilized milk. UHT milk, yes. Sterilized milk, no. Look in the baking department in supermarkets for different milks. I've looked, honestly, I can honestly say UHT and all the oat milks and everything else. I just not there. There's just nothing there at all about sterilized. But I will go down this week and have a look. I like milk too, but it seems too much dairy doesn't like me. Had to give up mature cheddar too. Oof. Oh, that must be a crime. That must be hard, but if it does your health some good, that's the important thing. Jan the 4th, those onion seeds were sown. There we go. Well done, Kate. Congrats, Kate. Nice one, Kate. Kate says thank you. Stuart says well done, Kate. Fantastic. Well done, though. Really well done. I'd love to know more about what you've learned doing this course, actually, Kate, because I think there's some fascinating stuff, I'm sure. Jenny says, Tamerstring, have you tried lactose-free? It's often the lactose in milk that people find hard to digest. You can use them fresh, but was thinking you can dry them in the pod after picking last year. I didn't pick them and dried them on the plant, but if you pick them, they will produce more pods, I think. Do both. Pick them and then leave the later ones to dry. Walnut trees kill many non-tolerant plants close to it, so be careful what you grow. That tree's been there a while. I think they're well aware if nothing's going to grow there. It looked like it's been there a while, but yeah, it's something to do with the natural, like caffeine. It's to stop a weed competition, isn't it? That's why they do that. This year, sowing cucumbers from seed was almost a flop. I have only one. It was from a pack Steve sent me. All the expensive seeds failed. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, all my market more, all my cucumbers did really well. The dragon's egg cucumbers are phenomenal, though. I've got to say, I really, really like the dragon's egg cucumbers. They're going on my must for next year. 4 cucumbers every week from one plant. Really, really good. Plus, the Telegraph, the market moors are coming into their own now. So, plenty of cucumbers are coming along. Dogs are allowed at Malvern this year on the Sunday, but you need a ticket for them. Cool. I might try that, Jenny. Cheese is fermented and so shouldn't have lactose in it. Don't know that. The cow is washed with a soap and flannel. Right. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I thought you meant talking about the milk being washed. Because I know sometimes there's some unpleasant stuff that can be found in milk when it comes straight out of a cow. Try goat's milk, no lactose in it. No, goat's milk, haven't had that for a while. Been to Malvern Food and Drink Festival today. Lots of people with dogs there. I think more places are letting dogs into these sort of shows because so many people had dogs and will have to stop short of if they can't take them. Walnut roots give out a plant poison. Yep. But as I said, if it's been there for a while, as it appears to be, I think they would know by now if it's going to cause any issues to any of the neighbouring plots. We have a dog, but we'll not take him to the likes of Malvern, etc. Too many. Yeah, we took Roxy to Bewley one year, and that was just right. The big shows might be too busy. We wouldn't take him to Gardener's World Live, something like that. I get used station tube dysfunction and the trigger seems to be dairy. Going to try a period without dairy to see what happens. Fair enough. Seed to table. Scott says dragon's egg cucumbers are doing the best out of all mine. Very productive and very Tasty, fantastic. Keep us posted, Turbo Stream. Hope you get on okay. Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, the Dragon's Egg have just been phenomenal. I'm definitely growing those again. And we'll see how we get on. Digwell says he's just put a picture in the group. So I'm going to look at that quickly. Now, what I need from you guys is what do you want to talk about next week? I did have an idea. Where were we? I did have an idea of something we could talk about. That's the picture. That's the picture he'd sent me, by the way. Don't have it at all. Did I just focus on that instead of me? No. Definitely have not seen it in our supermarkets, but I will go and have a look. I will go and have a look. Oh God, it's happened again, hasn't it? And I don't know why it does this. I think I might have to change the USB cable soon as to why that happens. Right. So, what is going to be the challenge for next week? There was a talk about eating snails, of course, but that may not be possible. That probably won't be possible. So there was other couple of challenges. I can't remember what they were now, but if you want to get voting on what your challenge would be, I want to sow seeds, of course, next week. And I'm trying to think, do we do Swiss chard? We could do basil, or shall we do what else could we do? Swiss chard, basil, or cauliflower. 3 choices. Let the voting commence on what you want the seeds to sow next week could be, or this challenge for next week. Stuart Jackson says, here is a code for Malvern Autumn Show, £2 off with code Apple advance ticket. There we go, Apple. If you are going to Malvern for £2 off. Anne says, never seen any dogs at the show, so maybe not. As it's a village show, people probably leave them at home. Okay, that's fair enough. I was just thinking I could take Roxy for a walk, but I'll try. I cannot promise I'm going to pop along because it's not that far, but it's a timing more than everything. I got my ticket last week. Digwell says collie. Jenny says cauliflower. So 2 votes for cauliflower so far. I would give Marvin a miss if there are dogs allowed. Not a dog person. Was attacked by a dog as a child and now very nervous around dogs. My wife was exactly the same until we got our dog, and now she's absolutely fine around dogs. Same with birds, actually. She was always scared around birds, and then we got chickens, and now she's fine around them. What you need to do, Thomas Stream, get yourself a dog, and then you'll be fine around them. Gardening, well done. I'm going on Friday. Good luck. Great stuff. Do us a video. Do us a video of the show to play in next week. That would be good. I will be there for the 3 days. Yeah, it'd be good to get a bit of a video or something I can play in on next week's show, some of the highlights, if you're able to do that, of course. So 2 votes for cauliflower. Cauliflower seems to have it. Now, what were the missions? There was the snail, which I'm going to put as if he gets it over to me in time, we could do. Don't really want to do, but it's there. What was the other missions? Oh, to use shell on earth, this stuff here, and see if it works. There's something else, wasn't it? What was the other mission that was mentioned? Brian says, this year has been a year of a collie for me. I've had so many beauties for a change. I've had really good brassica year. My cabbages, my cauliflowers, my broccoli, all have done fantastic. Bad enough avoiding all the trolleys and disability scooters. Oh, excuse me. At Malvern. Now dogs too. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I'm going by Bewley and what's Audley End House, the Gardener's World shows. or two of the Gardener's World shows. The dogs there are pretty good, but if it was busy like Gardener's World Live, I wouldn't even consider taking a dog. But I know what you mean there. It's not till late September. Yeah, sorry. Yes, do us a video for that. That would be great. Sorry, I meant when the show is. There we go. Plant a companion planting mix to keep slugs away. That was the other one. That was the other one. So the vote's over to you guys. The snails, the companion planting, or the shell on earth. I hate barking too. The only dog I would consider is a Springer Spaniel, but I'm more of a cat person. Springer Spaniels are working dogs. They're a lot of work. That's all I'm going to say on that. And that's often where the barking comes from. When the working dogs, they don't get enough mental stimulation. That's when they start to bark. A good dog is a tired dog. I think it's only for the Sunday. It is only for the Sunday. Oh, for the dogs, only on a Sunday. Yeah, wouldn't want me there, then, Steve. yeah. Talking about the wheelchairs and dogs and things like that. So, right, yeah. Now we also need a subject for next week, and I did have an idea which had just gone completely out of my brain. What was the subject I was going to suggest? I can't think of what it was. Anybody got any suggestions for subject next week then as well? Would be very open to ideas of what we were going to do. I cannot remember what I was thinking of. Any suggestions for subject for next week would be great. Something really interesting, something we can really sink our teeth into. Scott's come up with a good one. What to grow in a greenhouse over winter? That's a good idea. That's something we could do. Not kidding the dogs at Turbo Stream. No, okay. I expect you can drive. LOL. Ah, dear. Yeah. What to grow in a greenhouse over winter? That's a good subject. Is that a good subject for everybody else? What to grow in a greenhouse over winter? What do you think? What do you think of that? Also, as I said, what is the mission that you would like me to do? I quite like, in all honesty, the companion planting of deterring slugs and snails / it's going to be a hard one to do, but we can do it. Things like that. Scott says like that idea. Stuart says like that idea. Scott. Rob says hot or cold greenhouse. We'll do both. We're not fussed either way. Jenny says allotment ponds, habitat and natural areas. How to improve our plot diversity and bring in predators. We can do that in the future. I think it's a bit close to tonight for that one, but definitely something we'll do in the future. Drove for almost 50 years, Steve. Yesterday to growing over winter. Yes, to growing over winter. Going to try a few things in a small cold frame. There we go. So that seems to be good. Cold. Muddy Boots says, Malvern Autumn, dogs at the showground. Dogs must be kept on a short, non-retractable leads at all time when in the showground. Dogs found worrying animals or visitors will be asked to leave. Oh, is there animals there? Then I definitely wouldn't take a dog. There's animals there. That's just not good. We're not taking sheep, cows. No. We're not going to take her. Hey, girl, I'm not going to take you to an autumn show. Roxy just came in. Both. We'll do both. We're going to do that. Companion planting for me. Yeah. No accidents. I'm hell on 3 wheels. Yeah. Okay. So companion planting, I think it's going to be for the challenge. I think that's a good one. And Kate says, I might get to a show in a wheelchair with a pack of huskies pulling me along. Digwell also says the companion planting. But yeah, huskies are great dogs. Great dogs. if you like dogs, of course. But again, hard-working dogs, they need stimulation. Okay, so I think that is got cauliflowers is going to be the summer long. The mission is going to be this companion planting for slug deterrence and slug sacrifice. And we're going to be discussing what we're going to be discussing now. Remind me what we said. Oh, what to grow in a greenhouse over winter. Hot or cold greenhouse. Now, if anybody does have any photos or anything they would like to share, even videos as well, please do feel free to send them over. My email address is always richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. You can, of course, get hold of me on social media, including our Facebook group as well. Anybody got, with sort of getting into the last 3 minutes, so just to recap on what we've learned about slugs and snails today. So everybody here has had a bit of a trouble with slugs and snails. Lots of crops lost, except for the odd person, the odd anomaly, shall we call them, Nigel in particular, who has escaped the onslaught of slugs and snails this year. But overall, it sounds like the three methods of attack is deterring, nature, and the worst or slug pellets that kill the plants. Nematodes and other things were other options as well. Moving forward, I'm going to be building a pond to try and attract some more frogs and toads into my garden. And we've sort of discussed the hedgehog theory as well. The hedgehogs don't really eat enough slugs and snails for it to be beneficial. But I still think they're worth bringing in because they also bring in with if you've got hedgehogs, you're going to have other animals coming in as well, which are also going to eat slugs and snails. So it's that thing, working together, bringing it all together. Right, guys, I'm going to start wrapping this one up. We will be back again next Sunday at 6. We've got podcast out tomorrow as always, and if you've enjoyed this, I don't often mention this. So if you've enjoyed this and you want to help support this, please consider becoming a member of our supporters club. I normally do this on a podcast. Details on that are at the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. The veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Right, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much, guys. You take care, and I will speak to you again next Sunday at 6, and we'll do it all again. Take care, guys.